You're listening to the Central Indiana Sports Report with your host, Greg Mengelt.
Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. Whenever you've chosen to listen to the Central Indiana Sports Report, I give you, upon my knees, 1,000 thank yous. Decided to add a little Shakespeare to the program. Today is December 12th, 2024. It's a Thursday, so it's another day for the Central Indiana Sports Report. I'm your humble host, Greg Mengelt, podcasting from Madison Grant High School. Producer Susie Mengelt is in the control room back at headquarters in Jeffersonville. And on Wednesday evening, Tipton Tribune and Elwood Call Leader sports editor Michelle Garmon join me to help interview coaches and media about Wednesday's and Thursday's games. I was not feeling very well on Wednesday evening. My voice was a bit wonky, so Michelle did the majority of the interviewing. Coming up, Grant Shouse called the Lapel-Madison Grant game and has a report from Lania Will's record performance. Rob Hunt covered Daleville and Frankton for the Herald Bulletin and called in with a report, and also talked a little Pendleton Heights and Alexandria basketball as well. In fact, he previewed Thursday's game between Pendleton and Delta, which he'll be covering Thursday evening. And Kevin Helfrich called the Mississinewa-Southwood game for the Action Sports Network and also has a report. We also interviewed Sheridan head coach Jaidlin Bradshaw about Thursday's Central Indiana Sports Report game of the night against Rossville, and it's Coach Bradshaw's Central Indiana Sports Report debut. Quick note, the boys basketball weekend preview will be posted sometime this afternoon or early evening. We start Thursday's girls basketball scoreboard with Wednesday's results. And we start at Lapel, where the Bulldogs beat visiting Madison Grant 90-14 behind a school record performance, 48 points from Lapel junior Lania Wills. Lapel is now 6-5. Madison Grant falls to 2-8. Grant Shouse called the game for the Action Sports Network and called us with a report.
First of all, tonight was a game that I don't know how to word it lightly. It was over from the start. Just Lapel dominated. And I don't know if you guys know this tonight, but Lania Wills set a school record of 48 points in a single game.
Wow.
Broke a school scoring record for most points scored in a game by a Lapel Lady Bulldog. So she scored 48. She had 41 through three quarters and just dominated. And she missed some really good looks, missed some open bunnies. If she would have hit 50% of her shots, she would have had about 60. And that's no exaggeration. I mean, she had a ton of shots. She was good tonight, and really one of the best performances I've ever seen from a boys or girls basketball player, I think, in 20 years of watching. Madison Grant got outscored in the second half 36-1 by my count unofficially.
And that's a running clock, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah, it was a running clock the whole second half. Just a tough night for the Argyles, but good news for them is what me and Jace Martin talked about in the post-game show after the game is that they're going to have an opportunity here in their next 3 or 4 games to put wins together. Really, their next 4, they're going to have opportunities to win. They get Elwood Friday, opportunity for a win. Eastern on Tuesday, another chance to win. They'll get Anderson Prep on next Thursday, another opportunity for a win, and then a toss-up game on the 21st against Mississinewa. So, opportunities for the Argyles, I think, is going to be really key. They're not a bad team. They have athletes. They have girls who have so much potential, but just tonight, Lapel could do no wrong. It's not like Madison Grant played bad. It's just Lapel forced so many turnovers. I can't remember what Flava said unofficially, but they had so many turnovers, Madison Grant, that led to so many fast breaks. That's really how Lania Wills was able to score. Not only did she have 48 points, but she probably had a triple-double with steals and rebounds. She definitely had, I would say, 15 rebounds, 48 points, 15 rebounds, and close to 10 steals tonight. So she's a phenomenal player, but Lapel's record is so deceiving. They were 5-5 coming into the game, but you look at the teams they lost to. They lost to North Central, who's always going to be a solid team in the Indy area. They lost to 9-1 Oak Hill. They lost to 7-2 Greenfield Central. So Lapel's a really good team. They're just over 500 at 6-5 right now. But Madison Grant, I think the only place for them to go for now is up.
That will be a interesting game Friday night because Elwood's got the really good point guard and with the Norris girl,
Yeah.
and she's playing really well right now, and that quickness and everything. Now, the one thing is, because I saw Elwood and Tipton play Tuesday night, and I was just telling Greg, I said, outside of Norris, Elwood doesn't have a lot of quick athletes because Tipton didn't have a lot of turnovers, and I don't think they had a lot of turnovers because Tipton, if the ball was tipped or deflected or whatever, Tipton could beat them to, what I mean? They could beat them to the loose ball so they didn't turn it over.
Right. And I think Madison Grant actually matches up with Elwood very well. I really think that's going to be a game. I do. And I said it last year. I thought it was going to be a game, but it wasn't. And Madison Grant was able to blow out Elwood. But this is a significantly better Elwood team from years past. They're 7-3 right now, I believe. Madison Grant's 2-7. But Elwood's kind of playing the brunt of their schedule right now. They're playing tough teams. They're actually playing some really good competition. And so, Friday will be a test for both teams for sure. And I think it's going to be a game, no question.
Don't you think rebounding can be a big key? Salee had 17 rebounds against Tipton, and Stout had 11. As a team, they had 47.
Yeah, and I think that Elwood probably can out-rebound Madison Grant. Madison Grant, and Jace Martin would tell you this, they have no size. They don't have any size whatsoever. And so I think the key for them is going to be rebounding. I think whoever can win the rebounding battle in that game has a good chance at winning the game. And on paper, Elwood should have a good chance to rebound the basketball better than Madison Grant does.
All right, Grant. Anybody else stand out for Lapel or anybody for Madison Grant that was worthy of mentioning?
Sophie Goodwin was really good tonight with 12 points. Off the bench, Jane Armington had 11 points for Lapel. Armington was really good tonight. She played really well, like I said, off the bench. Goodwin was good too, hit a couple big threes. They had three players in double figures, Armington, Goodwin, and then, of course, Wills with 48 points. And Lapel's very well coached, and I really like the class act that Coach Zach Newby did. With about 5 minutes to go in the game, he called a timeout, and he went down to Jace Martin, and he asked Jace if he could put Wills back in the game to try and go after the record. And Jace was like, of course, go ahead. And he told us after the game that, we basically said that if Wills played for Madison Grant and she was going for a record, then yeah, the Madison Grant staff would want her to get in the game for them to break a record, or any girl on the Madison Grant team, if they were going after a record like that, they would want her to be in the game. And so
Jace
the
Martin
two coaches coming together and talking about that, I think really was one of the better things you're going to see in high school basketball. The sportsmanship and the class act was.
Madison Grant hosts Elwood in a CIC contest as part of a girls-boys doubleheader. I'm planning on being there Friday night, and we'll have reports from both games. Daleville beat Frankton for the first time in at least 30 years, 55-50 in Daleville. The Broncos are now 5-4. The Eagles fall to 4-6. Here's Rob Hunt of the Herald Bulletin with a report on the game.
Yeah, it was an interesting game. I thought it was an interesting matchup from the beginning. Frankton's still trying to figure out kind of what they are, and Daleville, I think, have some expectations they're starting to get together. So I thought it was kind of a defining moment for Daleville, certainly. And it was a back-and-forth game. Daleville really controlled things into the third quarter, led by as many as 10. But then they got a little careless with the ball, and Frankton took advantage, hit some shots, which they were not hitting earlier. and they ended up leading by 8, and Daleville finished the game on a 15-1 run.
Wow.
To win. They went from down 8 to up 5.
Was it Frankton just not playing awareness of the score and clock, or was it Delville turning up the pressure and Frankton not handling it?
Well, what I saw in front of me was Daleville turning up the pressure. They forced 7 straight turnovers during one stretch during their comeback. And just to kind of gauge where Daleville's defense was, they had forced 9 turnovers through 3 quarters. They forced 12 in the fourth quarter.
Wow.
So a lot of it was defense. But, boy, if you listen to Jeff Bates, and we've all been around Jeff Bates enough, the man does not yell.
No, he does not.
He turned up the volume tonight in that huddle a number of times. I did not get a chance to talk to him. I believe the team went straight to the bus, which I completely understand. I would not hold it against him, but he was not. It was plain he was not happy with the way his team played. I'm going to give a lot of credit to Daleville for the way they played, but Frankton at times did not play very well. They, they're going to kick themselves when they look at the video and realize all the layups and really short, close-in looks they had that they missed in the first half, that they would have made a difference later in the game.
Rob, I just get the sense with Frankton that they kind of just match and I'm not saying that Delville's not talented or a good team, but they tend to match the level of their competition. I mean,
They played up against Lapel.'re right. I mean, they played really well against Lapel. That was as happy as I've ever seen a coach after a loss. We're talking about a team, and they're still kind of dealing with what we were talking about at the start of the year, which is who's going to step up with when you lose Sperry and Collins, that's over 2,000 points, obviously, because my math is really good. That's a lot. That's a lot of. Those two handled the ball all the time. They scored most of their points. They were arguably 2 of their better defenders. That's a lot gone, and plus leadership, and Emma Key's having a phenomenal year. She really is. I'm really happy for her, by the way, because she really has not had a chance to shine in her career. She's having that chance now, but she needs help. I mean, they all do, and especially on a night like tonight when. And we could talk about this too, is the defense of one of Daleville's sophomores absolutely took her out of the game. Key had scored 1 field goal in the first half, finished with 9, which was well below her average. And I think she didn't hit any threes. She had 3 free throws and a couple other field goals there in the second half. But they took her away. Sophia Hoagland stepped up, had a nice game. Addie Moore had probably the best game I've seen her have. She scored 14 points, hit a couple big threes. But I don't think we know what Frankton is yet, if that makes sense.
No, and I get that. And the player I think could be key for them because I really like her game. I liked it. And I'd like to see her become more aggressive. Maybe it's just becoming more comfortable, and that is Hoagland.
She's a nice player. I mean, she made her first 3 threes. I think she missed one late, but she was knocking them down. And I've always kind of wondered, is she a little timid about wanting to take on a leading scorer type role, because she could play. She had a lot of rebounds tonight too. She's a good player.
She is, and I think she is a key if Frankton is going to be able to be an above 500 team.
Yeah, and I think Layla Dietzer's a kid. She plays a really nice point guard position for him too. I think they've got the pieces. The Curtis girls have that size. I don't know how aggressive they are. They might fall into that category where they may be a little bit too nice of kids, because they are.
Yeah.
But to be that force in the interior, I think you've got to have a little mean person in you. But they've got the pieces. I just think it's a matter of settling into roles and who's going to have the confidence to take the shots and that kind of thing.
Let's talk about Daleville real fast, Rob.
Sure.
Nice job by Joe Wrench in his first year as the varsity coach, 4-4. It seems like they're a pretty good athletic bunch and been playing really well. They lost two games in a row before beating Randolph Southern, but they only lost by 8 points to Wapahani. That's a good sign.
Yeah, and I believe Randolph-Southern was undefeated when Daleville beat them. Yeah, they play really tough defense. They showed that tonight. They're young, and one of the things the Wrench has done, which is really interesting, and I'm not sure why more small. Maybe they try, but Joe Wrench is a really popular coach and teacher there. But he recruited a couple kids from other sports to come out that hadn't played basketball in a while, like Trishelle Johnson, we know her from volleyball,
Right.
and Maddie Reese and Emily Simmons from volleyball as well. Simmons is a really good softball player too. But he brings those kids in. None of them are expected to go out and score 20 points a game, but they're athletic. They have a clue. They're multi-sport kids, so they played a little basketball in their past, but not recently. So they've got a clue. They kind of know what to do. They go out there, they grab some rebounds, they play some defense. Now Trishelle could score. She's kind of freakish that way, but that's kind of a nice missing thing that they didn't really have last year. Last year they kind of had a couple really good players, and then not many other people to fill those type of roles. And that's one thing he's done that's helped an Addie Gothrop, who's a really good scorer, and those two sophomores, Olivia Pratcher and Maudlin Campbell, who are really coming along as developmental players and are really starting to show that they have a really nice future there at Daleville. They really do. And those kids, they had 3 in double figures tonight, 1 point away from having 4 in double figures. So they're not a one player show. And but I think having those athletes from the other sports, and probably something I'm going to look at, maybe doing a story later on in the year, really has bolstered what is, they're a defending sectional champ. They're going to have a tough road this year, but with realignment, but they got a chance to repeat.
Yes, they do.
Yes, they do. Who were the Daleville players that were in double figures tonight?
Addie Gothrop, she finished with 19, had 7 points during that last stretch, and 4 steals in the fourth quarter, including 3 possessions in a row. And defense, and she said it, and I've had to put it in the story, not her strong suit. The coach gets after her for defense, but her defense made the difference tonight. And Johnson finished with 15 points. Hit a couple threes, which gets the team excited because I don't know if that's her strong suit, but and then Pratcher scored 10, but there again, her contributions were defensively on which the job she did on key for a sophomore to take a senior out like that, pretty impressive.
All right, Rob. As you know, tonight, Lania Wells scored 48 points. I said Wells. Lania Wells. I had a habit of saying Willis at the beginning, and now I said Wells. She deserves the respect of me saying her name correctly. Lania Wells. 48 points tonight, and a big win over Madison Grant. Let's talk about a little bit about Lania.
Man, what a kid. I mean, first of all, she never scored a point, and you only knew her just as a person, you'd adore her. She's just a really sweet kid, really nice person. She does turn into a bit of an animal on the court, though. Just a great career she's having, and tonight she breaks Lindsay Winkler's record, school record. Like I think it was 47. She scores 48 tonight, and that's a record that has stood at least 28 years. She graduated, I believe, in '96. I don't have those numbers in front of me, but that's Lapel's all-time leading scorer for her career, which I believe Lania is probably going to take that record away from her next year probably. But 48 points tonight. Also, I don't know if they mentioned this tonight, but I believe that's a new gym record because I was there when Sydney Tucker scored 40 in a county game at Lapel, which I believe was the gym record at the time.
Wow.
I don't recall anybody beating that since. I could be wrong, but I'm going to go out on a limb and say 48 is the new gym record.
All right, Rob, we're going to hear from Rob again in a few minutes. He's going to talk about Delta at Pendleton Heights girls basketball coming up here in just a minute. Sorry, Rob, Michelle, and I got a little tangential there. We tend to do that because all three of us are passionate about high school sports. Frankton is back in action on Friday and will look to bounce back against 3-5 Eastbrook in a CIC showdown at Frankton. Daleville hosts 2-6 Blue River in a Mid-Eastern Conference clash Tuesday. Mississinewa won its second straight game, 47-39 over Southwood at home, and the Indians are now 3-5 on the year. Kevin Helfrich of the Action Sports Network called the game and has a report from Gas City.
Well, these were two evenly matched teams here tonight in Gas City, and the first quarter proved to be that. The game was tied at 11-all after the first quarter. Both teams had shot the ball pretty well in the first quarter, and there was a 5-point lead early on for Mississinewa, but Southwood was able to close the quarter and tie it back up. And but Southwood was without one of their main ball handlers tonight, Izzy Ashba. She was out sick, and so that kind of later on would maybe play a factor in this game. But Mississinewa, the difference kind of came in the third quarter after building a 29-23 halftime lead. The Indians came out in the third quarter and shut the Knights out 9-0. That really separated this one, as it was a 6-point Mississinewa lead at the half. And in the first half for the Indians, they got a career performance from Charlie Ballage. She had 11 of her points in the first half and really made a big difference. Unfortunately for her, she picked up her fourth foul in the second quarter, just about 20 seconds left in the half. She picked up 3 quick fouls, and so it was kind of questionable who's going to step up for the Indians. And in the third quarter, Ashlyn Baker was that person who came in, knocked down a big 3-point shot that pushed the lead to 13, and the Indians built a 17-point lead early in the fourth quarter. And then Southwood mounted a little bit of a rally. They got a couple technical fouls, unfortunately for Mississinewa, got this game back under 10, but just the Knights just simply ran out of time. And then J.C. Crick was the difference down the stretch. She finishes with 16 points. Most of those came in the middle 2 quarters, but she had the last 4 of her points in that fourth and final quarter as well. So good win for the Indians, back-to-back wins, but now they have a tough challenge when they go to Oak Hill on, I believe it is Friday or Saturday night. I'd have to double-check that. And then Southwood will try to bounce and end a 2-game losing streak when they go to Northfield, a county rival up there in Wabash County.
Yeah, especially for Mississinewa, that is a tough matchup coming up with Oak Hill. You look at Oak Hill and Alexandria as I think the clear-cut co-favorites in the Central Indiana Conference.
Oh, I think so, without a doubt. This is going to be a tough one for the Indians. I'm not quite sure of the status of one of the players. May not be eligible in that game because I'm not sure there were 2 technical fouls called, and I'm not sure if they assessed the second one on the bench or if they gave it to the player. It was questionable at the time. There was a long discussion between the officials and coach. So I'm not sure that could have a huge impact on the Indians if one of those players is not able to play against Oak Hill. They'll need all their full arsenal to pull one off against the Golden Eagles the way they're playing. So we'll see how that goes for Mississinewa, but this is a good win. This is 2 in a row now for the Indians. They kind of bounced back off the mat after that slow start to start the season. They've had a lot of close contests and things just weren't falling their way, but they seem to have put, for the first 3 quarters, I thought they'd played their most complete game of the year.
Now, you gave us some stat leaders there for Mississinewa. Who led Southwood?
Yeah, for Southwood, it was Lola Weiner. She had 13 points, most of them coming in that fourth quarter, just a little bit too late for the Knights. Hallie Pershing had 8 points and 6 rebounds. She's been steady for them all year long. And then Gracie Lambert chipped in 6 points all in the first half. That kind of kept Southwood around in that first half. So unfortunately for the Knights, in the third quarter, just couldn't overcome the turnovers. They had 7 turnovers in the quarter, and that Mississinewa half-court defensive pressure just got to them. The passing angles weren't very good. The passes were not getting where they wanted them to go, and they only got 4 shot attempts in that quarter. So that third quarter ultimately was the difference in this one. Otherwise, it was a fairly evenly matched contest for most of the game outside of that third quarter, which just kind of blew the doors open, and Mississinewa had enough of a cushion to hold on in that fourth quarter.
And I know a lot of people think the first 3 minutes of a game are really key. I always think, personally, I think it's the first 3 minutes of the third quarter are the key minutes, because you can overcome an early first quarter deficit. Tipton did it the other night against Frankton. I mean, Frankton scored the first 10 points of the game, but you get that deficit in the third quarter, then, and if you come back, you're usually fatigued down the stretch then in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, it's just too much of a hole. It was only a 6-point game at halftime, but it ballooned to 15, all because they couldn't find shots to fall. They couldn't even get shots, and Mississinewa just was able to shoot just well enough in that quarter. They were 3 for 8 and 1 for 4 from behind the 3-point line and knocked down both their free throw attempts. So, through the first quarters, Mississinewa had shot the ball over 50%, almost at 50%, actually at 14 for 29. So they were shooting the ball well above their season average, and were just playing what I thought was an outstanding game against Southwood, who's ultra aggressive as well. But Southwood wasn't able to necessarily turn them over as much or convert them into points. On the night they did turn the ball over, Mississinewa turned the ball over 17 times, but some of that was just too little too late anyway, and so they didn't really have much effect on the outcome of this game.
The Indians will try to make it 3 straight with a huge CIC contest Saturday afternoon at rival Oak Hill, as Michelle and Kevin mentioned. The Golden Eagles are 8-1. Both teams are unbeaten in the conference. The Central Indiana Sports Report Girls Basketball Player of the Night is an obvious one. Lapel junior Lanaya Wills had 48 points, 17 rebounds, and 7 steals in the Bulldogs' 90-14 win over visiting Madison Grant on Wednesday. Before we get to Thursday's games, please don't forget to like, subscribe, or follow us so you don't miss a single segment. We are on SoundCloud, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, and now on YouTube. Just search Central Indiana Sports Report. There are 2 unbeaten teams in the Hoosier Heartland Conference. They meet Thursday in the Central Indiana Sports Report game of the night. Sheridan is 6-1 overall and has won 4 straight. It's their best 7-game start since 2021. Rossville, under former Miss Basketball and Purdue star Jennifer Jacoby, is off to its best start since 2017. On Thursday evening, the Blackhawks and Hornets will meet in a game that is almost certainly going to produce the conference champion. On Wednesday evening, Michelle Garmon and I talked with Sheridan head coach Jaidlin Bradshaw about her team and the challenge of facing Rossville. Here's Coach Bradshaw's Central Indiana Sports Report debut. Welcome to the Central Indiana Sports Report. Sheridan coach Jaidlin Bradshaw, who has the Blackhawks at 6-1 this year, unbeaten in the conference, with a big one on Friday against Rossville, which is also unbeaten in the conference. And welcome to the Central Indiana Sports Report, Coach Bradshaw.
Hi, thanks.
Coach, I just wanted to tell you, I was talking to Coach Leela Gilman at Tipton,
Yeah.
and I know you guys are really good friends last night. We're talking about her upcoming schedule and different things, and we touched on Sheridan, and she said, and this is why, in my opinion, you are already the clear-cut favorite in sectional 39, and I know that's a ways down the way, and so you don't want to think about that, but the reason is because it's like Coach Gilman said, you have a solid 6 players that really know their roles and do them very well.
Yeah, they're just such a great group, and I know everyone that comes to watch them, they definitely see that, but it's super helpful that they're just bought into what we want to do. So it helps, that it's my 7 returning core players from last year as well that played the bulk of the minutes. So that definitely doesn't hurt. But yeah, just their buy-in and their effort and their work every day makes it possible for us to do what we want to do. So
tell us about your matchup with Rossville coming up. I know Rossville this year, they're coached by, of course, former Miss Basketball and Purdue great Jennifer Jacoby.
Greg's all-time favorite player, Jennifer Jacoby.
But
no,
so
yeah,
what do you expect from Rossville maybe this year that you haven't seen the last couple?
No, yeah, definitely. Rossville's playing super hard right now. And they've got some players who've really started to develop in their roles, and are just coming alive right now. It's been nice to watch. I think I've maybe watched almost all of their games so far that they've played. And so they play physical, they play hard, and they don't stop playing hard. That's another thing that we've talked with the girls a lot about. They've been down in multiple of their games. And then they just don't quit. They're just like a pest, like a little gnat, and they don't go away. And they've actually come back and won a couple of those games too that they've been down in. So we just have to play hard for 32 minutes, and we can't let their physicality and their aggression, frazzle us, I guess, if that makes sense.
Do you find the Rossville gym challenging? I kind of found I find it challenging when I've gone over there before, just sometimes to even cover a basketball game because it seems small.
Yeah, I mean, 2 years ago, I think we were probably favored to beat them, and we ended up losing. It is a very hard place to play. I can remember, I mean, this was 100 years ago, it feels like, but when I was in high school playing there, and again, we were favored to win a game there and lost. It's a very hard gym to play in. They have great fans, and they always have great support from like other students, cheer block wise. It's a hard place to play for sure.
Do you feel like maybe your seniors this year are probably up to that challenge? I mean, you have one of the best seniors in the area in Kinsey Gardner, so
Yeah, I mean, we've, been preparing for them. We've been fortunate that they're our only game this week, so we're hoping that the girls know what to expect. Um, so I mean, our leaders, I mean, we have, 5 seniors and 2 sophomores, and they've all had significant varsity playing time, so we're hoping that that leadership and that experience will serve us well tomorrow.
um so your team staying pretty healthy?
Yeah, I mean, for now, knock on wood, right? It's still early. But we really try to emphasize to the girls, going to bed at a decent time and not doing silly teenager things and being out late and drinking plenty of water. And, it sounds silly, but I mean, it's huge, especially this time of the year when everyone is sick. Um, so we're trying.
All right. And um so I mentioned Kinsey Gardner. Do you want to,
Yeah.
by name, do you want to name those other key players for us and tell us a little bit about
Yeah.
them?
Kinsey, she brings a lot to the table for us. She kind of runs the show for us. It's it's been like obviously she gets it now, but when she was young, it was a hard thing for her to figure out like her the way she plays is the way that everyone else is going to play. And she's done a really good job of, figuring that out and really like taking on that leadership role and understanding that, everything we do has to go through her. And so she has to be smart on both ends of the floor. And then she has a younger cousin who is a sophomore, and that's Brielle Garner. She is just wiry, fast, quick, aggressive, all over the place all the time. She's super awesome for us. Um, and then we do have the two Timmy sisters. So Cecilia Timmy is a senior. She's just super hard nosed. She tore her ACL in soccer during her sophomore year, and so that was a big year of learning for her. I would say she got to see things like from the perspective of a coach, and it's just elevated her game entirely last year and this year. She sees the floor completely different. Her outlook on the game is completely different. And then there's Sadie Timmy, who's just another super hard nosed, aggressive defender. She's not scared of anyone or anything. The kind of kid that if you tell her, hey, go run through this brick wall, I mean, she's just not going to question it and she's going to do it. Um, and then we have Nova Cross, another senior. She super quick, super athletic, does a great job of being a role player, gets on the floor for us. She's actually looking at a scholarship for track. I think she's visited Manchester, Franklin, I believe, and St. Francis up in Fort Wayne. So she's had a really good track career, and she definitely brings that quickness and speed and agility to the basketball floor. And then coming off the bench for us, we have Shelby Eaton. She's actually committed to play at Lawrence University in Wisconsin. It's a D3 school. And that was a really good fit for her for what she wants to study and all those things. So she does a great job for us coming off the bench. She brings a spark for us. She's a good communicator. And then we also have Max Smith, who has, done just a tremendous job for us. I always tell her, I'm like, I don't know how you're always in the right place at the right time, but she truly is. So she does that really well for us, and then she rebounds the ball wonderfully. So I always tell them, I'm like, we're so fortunate to, have 2 people that come in off the bench that we don't lose a lot with when they come in, if that makes sense. They might bring different things, but they bring a different look for us, but it's beneficial for us for sure. So those are our top 7. And then obviously, you can't have a successful program without having JV kids. And so we have 7 JV kids as well who just work their tails off. So yeah, that's our crew.
The computer-based Sagarin rating says Sheridan is favored by 24. 7-3 Delta goes to 5-5 Pendleton Heights on Thursday. The Eagles and Arabians are both 2-1 in the conference. So this is essentially a Hoosier Heritage Conference elimination game. Here's the Herald Bulletin's Rob Hunt with a preview. All right, Rob. Pendleton Heights has been through the ringer a little bit schedule-wise. Delta comes in at 7-3 on Thursday, a game that you will be covering. What are you expecting from that one?
Yeah, and you mentioned Pendleton Heights going through the ringer. Their schedule is really tough. They do that for a reason. Part of it's because they played a tough conference, but they want to be better at the end of the year, so they play teams like Westfield and Lawrence Central and that group. Delta's an improved team. If there's been a soft spot in that conference, Delta's probably been it on the girls' side the last few years. Off to a really good start this year. I believe they were right with Alexandria till late. Alexandria, we've both seen that defense do what it does late in games. Kind of took that one away, but Delta hung with them obviously for most of that game. So I would expect Pendleton Knights they better be on their toes because they've already dropped one conference game. They can't afford to lose another one.
Yeah, and Griffin Knight from Delta scored 30 points last night against Burris, so they definitely have a go-to scorer. On the boards, Jillian Barr is. It seems like she has 12 or 13 every night. Seems like Pendleton Heights should win this game, but it's definitely not a gimme.
Yeah, obviously we know the names to watch for Pendleton. Casey Warfel is closing in on history herself there for Pendleton, and Ada Humper, the sophomore, she's the 6'3" and rebounding. She's averaging a double right now. So those two, and then certainly Olivia Jones is another kid who can light it up when needed. So they've certainly got the weapons. We'll see how they do Thursday. Yeah, I would expect Pendleton Heights to come out on top of this. They're playing at home. They're a confident group, but I would expect Delta to hang with them.
Right, we'll jump ahead to the new year a little bit as we're looking ahead and things are. How do you see Pendleton Heights or Alexandria being the favorite in the Madison County Girls Tournament?
I think it's got to be those two have to be the favorites. I would think, just based on based on personnel and strength of schedule. Pendleton Heights' record we know is a little deceptive. They're hungry, and talking to a couple of those kids through the course of the year, they want that county title back after Lapel won it the last couple of years. And then Alexandria, they did what they did against Lapel earlier this year, really kind of handled that game. So Pendleton's going to get first crack at Lapel, and I believe that's the first round game, and then could be Pendleton and Alexandria in a semifinal, which may make the championship game somewhat anticlimactic.
Yes.
Depending on who comes out of the other side, but yeah, that half of the bracket is certainly going to be fun. I think. I feel for Anderson. They're going to play, I believe, Alexandria there first, and Anderson's having a tough time. They're winless, but they've had some injuries. They're relying on some young kids that maybe aren't quite ready for the varsity level. So I would expect Alexandria to take care of that and set us up for what's a really nice semifinal game against whoever comes out of that Pendleton Lapel game.
Yeah, I've been saying real fast about Anderson that they're winless, but they're not one of those helpless winless teams that you see from time to time that's just going to get blown out every game. That's not what they are.
No, and the style of defense that they play. I mean, you are maybe just a shade better than them, and you let your guard down, they can pick your pocket and get a win. So I hope Coach Boyd and that group, they're just talking to a couple of those girls. Kennedy Brown's a really nice kid. She's their leading scorer. She's in a walking boot when I saw her the other day. So and they were missing a couple pieces at the start of the year. I don't think he's really had his full complement of players since the season started. So hopefully they can get healthy and make it an interesting county tournament. They're always kind of a dark horse or wild card, whatever cliche you want to use in that sectional. They've gone down there and given some heavy favorite teams some problems in the past. So we'll see how that goes.
And even before the Madison County tournament, it'll be good to see Alexandria get some good competition. They go to Richmond right after Christmas. They're going to win their first round game. Clearly, Jacksonville's not as good as they've been, but you've got Ben Davis in there. You got Charlestown, very good program. Marion's there, Connorsville, Richmond. So they're going to get some competition at that one.
Yeah, that's an elite. That sounds like an elite field overall. So, and that's what Coach Hosier wants. I mean, he's thrilled with being 10-0. I promise you that. But more than anything, he wants that sectional championship, and he knows that his team is probably the favorite in that sectional. I would think, but he doesn't want to take it for granted. He wants his team to be ready when it gets to that time, because they've been kind of fallen victim to the Lanaya Wills machine the last couple of years, and they feel like it's their time. So
It seems like a
I would.
championship season for Alexandria, but in order to win the CIC, they're going to have to beat a pretty good Oak Hill team. In order to win the sectional, they're going to have to beat a pretty good Wapahani team. So they are going to need to face some competition here coming up.
Yeah, Wapahani is one of those teams, especially when it comes to girls basketball. You don't necessarily think of them as a great girls basketball program because they've never really had a great program, but they've always been just feisty enough to give you problems. They bring some athletes, usually a couple kids you recognize from the softball diamond or the volleyball court, and you're like, well, this doesn't look like a great basketball team, but at the end of the game, you're fighting for your life against them. So Alexander's got to be ready for that sectional for sure.
Looks like a good Wapahani team. Just beat Delta, beat Yorktown. So it's a really nice team. And as you said, Randolph Southern was unbeaten till the other night, and Wapahani just beat them 57-18. So that's going to be an interesting.
That's an impressive win, for sure.
So this is a pretty darn good Wapahani team. Anyway, thanks so much, Rob. I always love talking basketball with you, and we look forward to doing it very soon.
As Terry Garr said in Young Frankenstein, the feeling is mutual.
It is indeed mutual.
Sorry, I'm reading the Mel Brooks biography right now, and I just read the Young Frankenstein chapter. It's one of my it's got to be, if not the funniest movie, top two. And the other one is Blazing Saddles. So
and you're a Mel Brooks guy.
I'm a Mel Brooks guy. I'm a Mel Brooks Monty Python guy. There's my sense of humor in a nutshell right there.
All right, Rob. Well, thank you so much for sharing that with us. I appreciate your time as always.
You bet. We'll talk at you soon.
Pendleton Heights has beaten Delta by at least 20 points in each of the past 5 seasons, including 80-36 last year. As Rob and I said, Heights should win this one again. The Sagarin rating agrees with us. It says the Arabians by 20. Tipton goes to Michigan Town, a place that used to be an easy place to pick up a win on Thursday. Clinton Central is no longer a pushover, thanks in large part to junior star Carly Davison, who's averaging 20.8 points, 7.7 rebounds, 5.3 steals, and 4.3 assists per game. In their most recent game, a win over Culver Academy on Saturday, she had 19 points, 9 rebounds, 6 assists, and 4 steals. Tipton has won 9 straight against the Bulldogs, but the two teams did not play the last 2 years. Tipton has already won 2 games this year after going winless last season. This probably won't be their third win. The Sagarin rating says the 6-3 Bulldogs are favored by 26 points. Tri-Central took a disappointing conference loss Tuesday at Clinton Prairie and looks to rebound Thursday against 5-3 Mechanic-Wall. The healthier the Trojans get, the more competitive they've been. Thursday will be another tough test against 5-3 Mechanic-Wall. The Braves were held to a season-low 21 points at Oak Hill on Tuesday, but has their best seven-game start since 2007-08 before the defeat. The Braves beat Tri-Central 63-24 last year, but it should be a good one this year. The Sagarin rating says Mechanic-Wall by 5. Blackford looks for win number 2 on Thursday. The 1-7 Bruins host 7-2 Lakewood Park Christian, which is having another standout season. The Panthers recently had a 6-game winning streak snapped by Central Noble. They are led by one of the state's top scorers in senior Ava McGrade. She has scored at least 23 points in 7 of Lakewood's 9 games and is averaging 24.2 points, 5.8 rebounds, 4.3 steals, and 3.2 assists. The Bruins have lost 6 straight, and the Sagarin rating says it'll be 7. It says the Panthers are favored by 25. All of Thursday's games start at 7 o'clock except for this one. Because of the lack of players, the JV game will be only one half. The varsity will immediately follow. And now you know everything we know about Central Indiana girls basketball. Central Indiana Sports Report is a product of ITG Media. And I love Susie.